Understanding how to manage your mind is your superpower. And this is something that the world cannot teach you. The World Health Organization now says that the biggest problem in the next decade and beyond is not going to be any physical ailment, it's going to be the mind. It's like physical health. If you start putting some effort into it, your physical health starts to change. And you might be physically very, very good, but if you don't put time into assessing your lifestyle, your physical health can go down very quickly. Mental health is exactly the same. Thank you so much. It's really a beautiful energy here, and really happy to be in Swansea. I was just thinking, when was the last time I came here? I think it was 20 years ago. But it looks the same. But yeah, really happy to be with you. And today we've kind of, got this time together to kind of discuss something that I think is so important to all of us. The heights of happiness, the depths of depression, is it? Dissatisfaction, depression is a bit. But we all have this kind of roller coaster journey. So I thought this evening we could talk a little bit about the mind. I'll maybe share some ideas with you, and I'll kind of leave a lot of time just for us to have a conversation. So maybe some of you will have questions or things that you may want to explore, so kind of happy to do that as well. So I'll just begin with a few prayers. So what we do before we begin any kind of spiritual discussion is we just offer a few prayers of gratitude. Anything we're presenting here is not our own knowledge, it's what we've learned from our teachers, from the sages, and from the ancient wisdom scriptures. So we just take a few moments to just close our eyes, offer some words of gratitude, and try to just open our hearts. When we come together like this, spiritual searchers, then what actually happens is that in this assembly, many of the answers to the questions we have in our minds, many of the wisdom that we require to navigate our journey forward, a lot of that appears in an assembly like this if we're open-hearted. So we just take a few moments to offer those prayers of gratitude. These are Sanskrit prayers, and then we'll proceed from there. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The mind. As I was coming up on the train, I just heard that Sadhguru released his app. I don't know if anyone downloaded it. The miracle of the mind. And you know the most amazing thing is that it broke all the records. In 15 hours, 1 million people downloaded Sadhguru's app. That's more than the number of people that downloaded the ChatGPT app when it came out. It took ChatGPT 3 days to get to 1 million downloads. And Sadhguru's app on the mind, the miracle of the mind, I'm not an agent here or anything, but I'm just letting you know. Sadhguru's app, the miracle of the mind, in 15 hours, 1 million people downloaded it. Everyone realizes dealing with the mind is perhaps the biggest talking point of modern day well-being and wellness. Because the mind is what constantly travels with us everywhere. And the mind is what determines our experience of reality, our sense of happiness and distress. And we'll see that our mind is on a constant fluctuation. And therefore, while most of the world is dealing with the externals and trying and putting so much effort into trying to make their external world perfect, the wise people put the emphasis within. There was once a lady, she came to the doctor and she said, I've got a real problem, I'm really sick. He said, what's the problem? She said, I went swimming the other day and I swallowed some frogs and they're alive and they're in my stomach. The doctor looked at her and said, it is not possible. You can't have alive frogs in your stomach. She said, no, I know it for sure. There's frogs, they're alive, they're in my stomach. He couldn't convince her. He finally said, okay, let me try something out. He put her under an anesthetic, and as she was sleeping, he went down to the pond, he got a couple of frogs. And he came back and he said, I operated on you, and you indeed were right. There were a couple of frogs, but don't worry, they're out now, here they are. She said, I told you. He said, yeah, what to do? You were right. But you're fine now. She said, I feel so much better. She came back the next week. She said, doctor, I got more frogs in my stomach. He said, how is it possible? I took them out. She said, yeah, but they laid eggs in there. And there's a few more in there now. And he realized, if you try to solve problems externally, they're not going to go away. You have to get to the root of the problem, which is one's own mind. There's a very, very beautiful verse from the ancient Bhagavad Purana where one sage is reflecting on his life, and he asks himself, why did I suffer in my life? The question we could all ask ourselves, why did I suffer? And do you know what his realization was? I'll tell it to you in Sanskrit. It's very beautiful. Sometimes when we hear the Sanskrit verse, then the wisdom also kind of seeps down into our consciousness. Would you like some of you to sit down? Is there, maybe you can come a little bit forward and make some room, otherwise you're going to be standing the whole evening, and you know, Hare Krishnas tend to go on and on and on and on. So you might get tired. So please do sit down, please have a seat.
The space here.
Yeah, some space here. This was his mature realization when he asked himself the question, why did I suffer? In Sanskrit it goes like this. Nayam jano me sukha dukha hetur na devatatma griha karma kalaha manaparam karanama mananti samsara chakram parivartayadyat. Why did I suffer? He says, Nayam jano, I used to think other people were the cause of my suffering. I was wrong. Nadeva, I used to think that maybe the gods were the cause of my suffering. They were conspiring against me. I was wrong. Graha, I used to think maybe it's my astrology, the movement of the planets causing my suffering. I was wrong. Karma, later on I thought maybe I have bad karma and that's why I'm suffering. I was wrong. Kala. Later on I thought maybe I'm just suffering because of time, because in time everyone suffers. I was wrong. He says none of these are the cause of my suffering. Mana param karanam amananti samsara chakram parivartayed yat, he says in Sanskrit. There's only one supreme cause of suffering, and that is my own mind. Therefore, so much of spiritual wisdom is about how to deal with this mind. So today we're going to kind of look a little bit at that. And today I'm going to live in the room today scan someone's mind. And it has to be someone who's really close to the TV. Today we're going to scan your mind. Is that okay? Are you up for that? He says, start chanting Hare Krishna. This is the time. Okay, what I want you to do... Prabhu's name? Prabhu's name? Gangaya, of course. Gangaya Prabhu. Gangaya Prabhu? What I want you to do for me, just look at the screen here. Where would you say most of the time your mind state is along this continuum? Are you generally more in comparison, criticism, competition mode? Or are you more in appreciation and encouragement mode of others? Where on that line, of course it's always fluctuating, but where would you say roughly you would put yourself on that line? There? Is that about there?
Yeah.
About there, right?
Yeah.
There? Okay. My hand doesn't lie. All right. Where would you say you are generally in your mental state? Do you generally feel as though your mind is always looking for short term, like I want to get it now? Or do you think your mind is quite controlled and you're able to delay it for long term? Where would you say generally you are? Okay. Ganga is very humble, you know. Humble or honest? Humble or honest? He's on the other side, Gopal saying, okay, we'll go with that. Ganga Prabhu, where would you say, do you feel your mind is quite distracted and many branched like in many places? Or do you feel when you're doing a task, you are present, focused, one thing at a time? Or do you believe like your mind's out of sync with reality?
No.
About there? About there, yeah?
No.
This is depressing, isn't it? Do you feel your mind is controlled by fear? Or do you feel it's inspired by dreams? Do you feel like you're always the person who's like, no, it's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong? Or you're like, no, let's try, it could go right. Okay. Thank you. Do you feel you're more in the overthinking and procrastinating, or analyze, articulate, and act? Okay. And do you feel your mental state is very rigid and attached? Like once you've thought of something, you can't like, or like, no, life has changed, you know, burnt the prasadam or something. No worries, let's go with it. Okay, yeah, thank you. Very rigid and attached. Give Ganga a round of applause for being so honest. Gangaya Prabhu, this is your mind scan, MRI. And now for a small fee, I can give you my consultation. Some people's minds are in order. Operative word being some people's minds. Some people's minds are on the border. And some people's minds are out of order. Of course, things are always moving. Where would you be? It's a question to ask. Imagine we could shift our mental state from here to here. Imagine how life would be. Imagine how our day-to-day experiences would be. Imagine how much immunity you would have from all the chaos and uncontrollable things around you. Understanding how to manage your mind is your superpower. And this is something that the world cannot teach you. The World Health Organization now says that the biggest problem in the next decade and beyond is not going to be any physical ailment, it's going to be the mind. Because what happens is that for most people, we are out of order when it comes to our mental wellness. But fear not, mental wellness or mental health is not either you've got it or you don't have it, isn't it? It's like physical health. You may be unhealthy today physically, but if you start eating well, if you start exercising, if you start putting some effort into it, your physical health starts to change. And you might be physically very, very good, but if you don't put time into assessing your lifestyle, your physical health can go down very quickly. Mental health is exactly the same. So the very, very first thing that the ancient scriptures tell us is that your mental health is not fixed. It depends on how much emphasis and effort you put into it. In the ancient Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna and Krishna, who are the two personalities having this incredible conversation, they spend a lot of time talking about the mind. And when Krishna talks to Arjuna about the absolute necessity of having a controlled mind or a managed mind for success in this world, then Arjuna, who's like accomplished, he's successful, he's powerful on every level, even Arjuna admits that his mind is very difficult to control. This is one of the verses he says to Krishna, Chanchalam himana Krishna pramati balavadridam tashyaham nigraham manye vayuriva sudushkaram. Chanchalam means that the mind is restless. Experience that? Mind is always moving. It's so hard to even just sit in an assembly like this and just focus on what the bald guy is saying. It's hard. You kind of like, even sometimes you're kind of listening, but you're kind of like, why is he wearing flowers? Like, all these questions go through your mind. It's so difficult to just concentrate because the mind is constantly restless. And then he says, the mind isn't just restless, but it's reasonless. Pramati means mad. So it's not just that the mind flickers, but sometimes the mind just goes into mad spaces without any reason. Once I was on one of these escalators coming on the London Underground in rush hour, and in my mind I just had a thought, what would happen if I pushed the person in front of me? I'm like, I'm a monk, man. Like, this is like, it's reasonless. The mind is like, it just comes up with stuff. It's crazy, isn't it? Not just that. Arjuna says, Balavad. Balavad means ruthless. Balavad literally means strong. So not only is the mind flickering, restless, not only is it reasonless and it goes, when you try to bring it back, the mind is strong, it fights. Like if I say, don't think of a blue elephant. Don't think of a blue elephant. You know what happens, right? And he says on top of that, dridam means the mind is relentless. Dridam means like obstinate. You can see it's not the best scenario in the world. The mind is restless, reasonless, ruthless, and relentless. And therefore, in this line here, Arjun says, therefore my conclusion, Vayuriva Sudushkaram, my conclusion, Krishna, is that to control the mind is more difficult than controlling the wind. Who can control the wind? Very difficult. He says, I think it's even harder to control the mind than controlling the wind. Even if tomorrow you could wake up and control the wind, still the mind moves faster than the wind. What do we do? Can you relate to this? Or has your mind become so... We can relate to this, right? For the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna. To subdue it seems to me more difficult than controlling the wind. So anyway, guys, good luck. See you later. Is there any solution to this? So what I'm going to try and do is give you 5 principles that the ancient sages give that if one develops in their life can help you to shift your mental state. Because the mind magnifies, invents, is very negative and is very, very distracted. How do we overcome these movements of the mind? Yeah. So these are the movements of the mind, generally going in this direction. And you know what? With things like social media, it's like the mind squared. It's become even more accentuated by all of the things going on in the world. So it's very difficult. So what I'm going to try and do today is give you 5 Sanskrit principles that the ancient sages talk about are kind of the 5 pillars of mental wellness. I'm not going to spend too long talking about them. I'm just going to give you a glimpse of what they're about. And then I'm going to kind of open it up and see whether there's any of them that you want to talk more about or ask questions about. Is that okay? Yep? All right, good. The very, very first tool that the sages give us in order to have better mental health is something called tapa. Can you say that? Tapa. Tapa. Does it sound nice? Tapa. When I became an kind of ordained, initiated monk years ago, then the name I got was Sutapa. Sutapa. Su as a prefix means very, great, and tapa here means austerity. So Sutapa means the one who performs great austerities. Tapa is a very beautiful word. It's kind of based on the Sanskrit root, which means to heat, to give warmth, to kind of, to shine or to burn. And what it means, more literally, is to give up immediate enjoyment for something much greater in the long term. This is one of the great keys of life. Don't give up what you want most for what feels good now. So what they would do in Eastern spiritual culture, not in any spiritual culture, what they would do is they would do voluntary tapa. Can anyone think of like a voluntary austerity that spiritual people do? Fasting. Yeah, everyone's like fasting, you know. Fasting is a really, really popular one. And sometimes people think that, why are you starving yourself? But the idea is that one of the most strongest senses in our body is our tongue. It's really like, when you go home today, you can open your mouth and just look at your tongue and you'll see. Don't do it now. It doesn't stop. It's constantly moving. And the idea is that if you do fasting, and if you manage to say, today, I'm not going to eat, that voluntary austerity of being able to say no to the pushing of the senses develops within you an incredible ability to control your mind. And then what happens is, by doing voluntary austerities like that, what happens is that when it comes to other things in life, where you have to forego immediate pleasure to do something much greater in the long term, you have so much more capacity in your mind. But what you'll notice now in the world is that nobody does any tapa. As soon as it's cold, put a heater on. As soon as it's hot, put a fan on. As soon as you're hungry, quick, order something, instant noodles. And what happens is our ability to just say no to the immediate pushing of the mind has basically been annihilated. And that means people's minds have become very, very weak. And that weak mind then gives you a really, really hard time in life, because you end up doing all of these things that you don't really want to do, which don't really take you to where you ultimately want to go. But because we don't have the mental strength, we can't resist. Therefore, like now, if you go, I don't know, did anyone go to Kumbh Mela? Have you heard? You've heard of, okay, you went to Kumbh Mela. Okay, there you go. You look like you've done tapasya at Kumbh Mela. Like in Kumbh Mela, you see, isn't it, so many yogis. And what do? They do all this tapasya. I went 12 years ago. It was too austere for me. No, I'm joking. It was amazing. But it was amazing to see how they do. Like, for example, they'll stand on one leg for like days without moving. And you think, like, what's the point of that? But the idea is that what they're developing is their ability to control their mind and not just give in to the immediate desires which keep on surfacing in our consciousness. So, tapasya, telling the truth is hard, right? Keeping a lie is also hard. Exercise is hard, right? Illness is also hard. Starting a business is hard, right? I wouldn't know. Working 9 to 5 is hard. Therefore, I didn't do any of them. Studying is hard, right? Failing is also hard. Being disciplined is hard. Having regrets is also hard. Tapasya means the ability to say, life is hard, but I have the ability to choose which hard. Let me choose the right hard that will lead to a beautiful life. And therefore, life is never easy, but you can choose your hard. And so spiritual culture means we do this kind of tapasya. It's not the be-all and end-all, but it's a principle that you can think about. Like that one? I was like, no, not like that one. This is powerful. If you do these things, the mind becomes very strong. Sattva. I'm giving you another sanction. Can you say that? Sattva. Sattva is a very beautiful word. It means goodness. And what basically the Bhagavad Gita explains is that everything in this world is pervaded by 3 archetype energies. One is called sattva, which means goodness. Another one is called passion, rajas. And another one is tamas in Sanskrit, meaning ignorance. So you know, like you have the 3 basic colors: red, blue, yellow. Yellow, right? Yeah, red, blue, and yellow. And those colors mix to give the entire spectrum. So similarly, it's said that in the cosmos there are three energies: sattva, rajas, and tamas, or goodness, passion, and ignorance. So everything in the world is pervaded by one of these energies or a combination of them. And if you learn to surround yourself with the energy of sattva, if all your habits and lifestyle become saturated in sattva, then what will happen is your mind will become very, very beautiful. So for example, the food that you eat can be in different modes. The movies you watch, the music you listen to, the people you befriend, the places you go, the websites you visit, the interests you pursue, all of this can be in goodness, passion, or ignorance. And usually it's a combination of all of them. And what happens according to that, then that creates a mentality in your mind. Then you also, your own consciousness is pervaded by goodness, passion, or ignorance. And once your consciousness is pervaded by goodness, passion, and ignorance, then what happens is you then tend to gravitate towards those same things again. That's why you develop habits. Because whatever you do then creates a mentality and energy which then impels you to do it again, and it's like a vicious circle like that. Does that make sense? So that's so the idea is goodness. I'm just going quick, and then you can ask me for clarification later on. So like someone once asked me this question: why is it that it's easier to form bad habits? Have you noticed that? It seems like the odds are stacked against us. Did anyone have to struggle to get addicted to chocolate? Like, I've been trying for years to get addicted to chocolate. I just can't do it, you know. But, you know, like eating healthy, you know, like, it takes so much, you know. It takes a bit of effort. Waking up early. Going for a morning run. What? So they said to me, it's fixed. God has fixed it. He's made all the good things hard. And He's made all the bad things easy. He's set us up to fail. He said, why is it's not fair. So I told him, I want to teach you a very, very special word today. Let's see if you get that word. If a road is like that, what do you call that? An incline, yes, an inclination. Inclination. So what the sages explain is that each one of us have a certain inclination in our consciousness right now. So, say for example, passion and ignorance is on this side and goodness is on this side. And imagine I have a cup here and I start pouring some water down. So as I pour water onto my consciousness, then where's the water going to go? Right here. That's why it feels like for some of us that bad habits, just passion and ignorance habits just come so naturally. But what happens is through the science that Krishna gives in the Bhagavad Gita, you can actually change your inclination. And then what will happen is that when the energy of your life will naturally flow towards goodness. When you've saturated your life with enough sattva, what will happen is you won't be able to sleep beyond 6 a.m. in the morning. You'll just be like, I can't do this, it's just terrible. You won't be able to eat unhealthy food. You'll just be like, no, this like spoils my consciousness. I just can't do this anymore. But what needs to happen is that we need to change our energies, and then our mind becomes much stronger. Does that make sense? So the second habit I'm giving you is sattva. The third habit, I'm going to go quickly now, because what time do we end?
You can go on as long as you like.
1 a.m.
That would be too much tapasya for you. Okay, I won't go. I'll go for like 10, 15 minutes and then I'll open it up for questions. Is that okay? So the third habit, this is really powerful. Vidya. Can you say that? Vidya. Vidya means knowledge. Vid comes from the, like for example in English we have the word like wisdom. So vid means literally to know, to think. So vidya means knowledge. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that there is matter, and above matter there is the senses. Above the senses there's the mind, and above the mind there's intelligence. So if you want to have a strong mind, one of the most powerful ways to do it is to spiritualize and strengthen your intelligence. When your intelligence is spiritualized, then what happens is you begin not to identify with the mind, but you identify the mind. You become an observer of the mind. Does that make sense? So, you know, like in English, we have the word worldview. Every single person has a worldview, a way in which we look at reality, a way in which we kind of decode things, a way in which we make decisions, for example. So worldview is basically the English translation of the Sanskrit word darshan. Darshan literally means to see, but it doesn't just mean the physical act of seeing, it means your intuitive vision of reality. So what happens is that when you absorb spiritual wisdom, then what happens is it transforms your darshan. It uplifts and upgrades and elevates your worldview. And then what happens is instead of identifying with all of the voices of the mind, when thoughts and ideas and different things go through the mind, because the intelligence is strong, the intelligence looks at it and says, well, that doesn't quite make sense. And then you're much more able to understand what parts of mental thought to embrace and what parts to ignore. Basically, every single person in their life is having mind-intelligence dialogues. Have you noticed? It's like those cartoons where there's like a demon on one side and like an angel and the confused person in between. So like your alarm goes off and your intelligence says, it's the morning. This is the most powerful time to meditate. Let's go. And then the mind comes in. Well, you went to bed late last night. And if you wake up now, then you're going to be tired throughout the day. So you've got to be practical. And then the intelligence comes in. No, but we'll wake up, we'll meditate. And then there's a slot in the day when you can actually, catch up on, it will be fine. And the mind goes, no. Don't you know that the biggest cause of health problems is late nights and early morning? You might be able to get through it today, but long term you'll get health problems. Anyway, by this time, by an hour has passed and you didn't get out of bed, So, so what happens is when you absorb your mind in spiritual wisdom, then the voice of the intelligence trumps the voice of the mind. That's powerful. That's powerful because we have this intelligence in it. How many times have you been doing something and you're kind of like, why am I even doing this? While you're doing it. While you're doing it, you're asking yourself, why am I doing this? On cigarette packets, 30 years ago they had a sign, smoking may damage your health. 10 years later the sign changed, smoking causes cancer. 10 years later the sign changed, smoking kills. When someone takes a cigarette out of a packet and smokes it, are they exercising their free will, yes or no? Yes or no? Anyway, we'll come back to that philosophical question later. That's a deep philosophical question. We won't have that. But the point is that there's an intelligence and there's a mind. And which one is going to win? Depends on which one you feed. Therefore, small minds discuss people. Average minds discuss events, but great minds discuss wisdom. Very powerful. Okay, I'm going to just skip through this because we're less time. Fourth principle, to make your mind strong. Seva. Can you say that? Seva. Seva means to serve. This is mystical one. The best way to find yourself is by thinking of others. It's counterintuitive. We find ourselves by thinking of others. When we actually engage in seva, which means selfless service, then what happens is we get much, much more control over our own faculties. Because selflessness is such a purifying quality. It's actually said in ancient Sanskrit literature that selflessness is the core from which all other good qualities come. Truthfulness, compassion, empathy, tolerance, humility, all of those things come from selflessness. And so the law of giving is that when you help others with their problems, you know what happens, right? Your own problems start to disappear. When you bring out the best in others, your own personality flourishes. When you share wisdom with others, your own intelligence expands. And when you share happiness with others, your own happiness increases. Seva actually helps you to build a very, very beautiful mind. Rabindranath Tagore, the Indian writer, he said, I went to bed and I dreamt that life was joy. I woke up and I realized life is service. And then I started to serve and I realized service is joy. Very beautiful. Service is so powerful. And then the final one, mantra. Can you say that? Mantra. Yes. Of course, you don't need me to tell you about this. You experienced it already. But the sound vibration. Sound vibration. Mana means the mind and tra means to free. So sound vibration brings us in touch with our deepest identity, beyond the gross and the subtle. We come in contact with our spirit self. And that mantra chanting is said to be one of the most powerful ways to control the mind, because what the mantra does is it connects us with our spirituality beyond the physical. C.S. Lewis said, if I find in myself a desire which no experience of this world can fulfill, I must conclude I was made for another world. And so what mantra does is it immediately brings you in contact with a spiritual energy and a spiritual happiness beyond this world. And then that means that all of the temporary, transitory, phantasmagoria, ethereal things of this world become less and less important. The best way to control the mind and all the petty things that go through the mind is just to get absorbed in eternity. To get absorbed in something which is so much greater, so much more fulfilling. And then the mind automatically becomes controlled. So these were just some thoughts I wanted to share with you. sages recommend that the more one embeds these principles in their life, samtapa, little bit, sattva, transforming lifestyle, vidya, empowering their intelligence, seva, giving, and mantra, chanting and connecting, then what will happen is that you'll see very, very quickly that the mental state will shift towards here. And if we develop this kind of mind through spirituality, and there's no other way to do it apart from spirituality, because spirituality gets to the core of it, then it will be all right on the night. And that's why the whole world is running around thinking that they're going to make a beautiful life by arranging everything external to them, but neglecting their own mind and consciousness, which drives everything. And that's why coming here, coming together with spiritual people, open-minded people, exploring what is just beyond just what everyone tells you, this is so powerful. It's such a gift, and it's so wonderful to be together like this and to discuss. All right, so thank you so much. Appreciate your attention. Hare Krishna. So do we have some time for questions? Or? Yeah, if anyone has any questions, or if there's anything I said which you may want more clarification on, then I can try my best to share something. Yeah, go for it.
What causes the attachment to the material world? Because obviously we come in spiritually, we're born, and then we sort of lose our identity. So what causes that attachment for us to become addicted to outside pleasures?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So if we're spiritual beings, then what causes us to become attached to the material? Basically, the soul in Sanskrit is known as Anandamaya Bhyashat, which in English means the soul is pleasure seeking. Now, what causes us to become attached to the material is that what happens is that when we come to the material world, we are looking for pleasure, and what the material things do is they give us an instant type of sensual and emotional pleasure. Now, what causes us to become attached to that is because we've become disconnected from our real identity. So what happens is that in the world we get attached and begin to identify with our body and our mind. And because we identify with our body and our mind, then what happens, the very next thing, is that you get attached to things which gratify the body and the mind. So the reason why we get attached to material things and material pleasures is because most people don't know who they are.
Because they say, obviously, people don't realise, because I used to read Buddhism a lot, and they say there's a body and a mind.
Yeah, we have a body and a mind.
So we're confused there, because we only think we're these bodies, do we? So they don't consider the mind as well.
Yeah, the mind is also a covering.
Yeah.
So the analogy is that, like, say for example, say you're sitting in front of a computer.
Yeah.
Then the keyboard is like the physical body. You are behind that keyboard, you're like the soul. And the software on the computer is like the mind, it's the interface. But you're not the software or the hardware, you're the user behind it. So in the same way, we're not the body, we're not the hardware, but we're not even the mind or the intelligence. That's software. And software sometimes gets a virus. But there's antivirus. And so the reason why we get attached to material things is because we have material identification. People think, I am English, I am Indian, I am man, I am woman, I'm this, I'm that, I'm socialist, I'm this, that. No, you're not any of those things. Those are just roles you're playing. Shakespeare said all the world's a stage and everyone's an actor and everyone has their entrances and exits. So we've become so disconnected from who we are. One writer says, I'm not who I think I am, I'm not who you think I am, I'm who I think you think I am. We don't know who we are.
Comes from to family.
Yeah.
When family goes in.
It's actually incredible to think, isn't it? Like, we don't know who we are. Like, I mean, that's amazing. Like, imagine, like, I was on the train today, so I sat across someone. So I was like, I asked them, like, where are you from? So, like, imagine you're in a train and you're sitting across from someone and you're kind of like, where did you just come from? And the person's like, I don't know. And then you're like, but like, where are you going? It's like, I don't know. Like, why are you sitting on this train? I don't know. I mean, at some point you're going to call the police or something, you know what I mean? It's just like, how can you not know where you've come from, where you're going, why you're here? These are the most fundamental questions of life. And people are kind of like, yeah, well, wherever I came from, wherever I'm going, wherever I'm here, I sure could do with some money. And they kind of just skip all of those questions and just start pursuing things. But like if you go into a phone shop and you tell the person, my phone is like, I need a new battery for my phone. What's the first thing they're going to ask you?
Money. Which phone?
Money. Probably well ask for money. What phone do you have? And then if you start saying, well, don't ask such deep existential questions, or, you know, like, don't get into such high philosophy. Just give me a battery. Yes, I can give you, but you have to know who you are. Therefore, the very first aphorism of Vedanta, Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Now you have the human form of life. Ask. Einstein said, never stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. When we were kids, we were so curious, isn't it? Why? Because you have to do it. Why? Why? Just do it. But then when we grow up, we don't ask. We stop asking why. So anyway, I'm going on and on now. But you get the point, right? We get attached to the material pleasures because we think we are material. But we're not material, we're spiritual. We're just passing through. It's just a transit lounge. Just here for some time. Just a chapter. Yes, there's a hand there.
I have a question about seva, please.
A question about seva? Yes.
So I just wanted to know, like, a bit more detail about it. And does the intention of seva not matter? So, like, if you're doing seva for the sake of receiving happiness or receiving pleasure and self-satisfaction, does that not defeat the entire point of seva because it has to be selfless?
So if we do something for others, but we're kind of harboring some kind of selfish motivation, or does that kind of defeat the idea? Sorry, excuse me. Thank you. Tapasya. So there's a progression here. One is you're selfish and you just do stuff for yourself. And then a little higher than that is you do stuff, you're kind of selfish, but you do it in a more refined way by doing it for others, by helping them, because that gives you some sense of satisfaction. And then it's said that even if someone does that with a kind of selfish motivation, because their act is good, what will gradually happen is that they'll become more and more refined in their consciousness and pure, and eventually they'll serve others for the happiness of others. and their happiness will just come as a concomitant factor without even trying. So in the beginning, we can't expect that we're just going to be like completely selfless, like, yes, I'm just going to do it. I have nothing. I don't want anything from it. I don't have any desire. I'm just here to serve you. We can't get there immediately. That's a very elevated consciousness.